What's up? It's Matt Plapp and a special guest from the West Coast.
Sean Walchef, Cali Barbecue Media, made it from San Diego.
And today we are going all the way, though, south to Nashville to talk to Brandon from Nashville Restaurant Radio. We'll be back in 1 second. That beat, every time that beat drops on that intro, I just start dropping it like it's hot.
I like it.
So, Brandon, tell us who you are and tell us about Nashville Restaurant Radio.
Well, my name is Brandon Still. I'm 43 years old. I'm a Pisces. I love nice long walks on the beach, and I like being whispered into my ear. Oh, no. I host a podcast here in Nashville called Nashville Restaurant Radio. I started the podcast in March of 2020, March 12th, 2020, as everything in the world was shutting down.
Was it on the books before the pandemic hit, or was this an idea spurned by that?
This was something that I had been thinking about since I was 20 years old. I used to bartend, wait tables at a restaurant in Brentwood, Tennessee, and I went to MTSU. So I would drive 40 minutes to and from, and I would leave work and we'd all go out drinking and telling these stories. And I thought, man, wouldn't it be amazing if there was a show that we could list, like a call-in show where servers could call and tell about their crazy experiences, and maybe guests would listen to this and learn something and go, oh shit, we should not do that when we go to restaurants. And I just thought it'd be a fun medium to listen to on the way there. So I had this idea when I was like 20 that, hey, let's share perspectives. And then I got into the food sales side of things and probably visited over 1,000 kitchens and had so many conversations with chefs while they're cutting salmon. And these are just these real, raw, what's going on in life, how you doing? And I think that I have a unique perspective from being in so many kitchens, kind of like yourself. So many kitchens, you see so many people's struggles, and nobody really knows about each other's struggles every day. So I wanted to start a podcast at the beginning of the pandemic, had the idea, I've been praying about it, all these things, had already bought the logo, had already figured out, bought the microphones, everything was ready to go. And then March 12th, when kind of everything stopped, right? Everything stopped in the world. No March Madness, no NBA, NHL, spring training. It all just kind of stopped. And everybody's putting out all these different communications of, please come eat in our restaurant. These big Facebook soliloquies saying, we wash our hands and we're sanitizing and our health score. Come out and eat. And I had a conversation with a marketing guy and he goes, is that the smartest thing to do, to put out on like the internet that you want people to come eat at your place when there's this pandemic? Everybody else is shutting down, but as restaurants, we were still saying, yeah, it's cool, just come here. And if we had done that and 20 people got sick and died because you were marketing that way. So I just started talking into a microphone and sent out a Facebook message that night, said, hey, does anybody want to talk about this? And an avalanche of people did. And that's where we're sitting 235 episodes later.
Wow. I love it. So are the conversations with the focus more towards the consumer or towards the restaurant industry, or does it kind of just go back and forth? I've heard both sides of it when I've listened to episodes.
It goes back and forth. Really, it's for people in the industry. It's a behind the scenes look for the guest if they can find it, but really it's an industry show. But I try and go back and forth. I try and make it, you never quite know what you're going to get. It could be something really funny. It could be a country music star. It could be, somebody who's introducing really cool technology to restaurants. Could be a chef, could be a restaurant owner, could be a bartender. Who knows? I'm looking for people who are interesting, who have a perspective about our industry, and I want them to share it. I want other people to get outside of their comfort zone and say, I never thought of it that way. Wow, I didn't know they were doing that. That's really cool. And I wanted to help build the community.
Can you take us back to your first episode that you published? We just put on a seminar for business owners here in the local area over by America's Best Restaurant headquarters. And we talked about the value of podcasting, the value of storytelling, becoming your own media company. Yeah. But so much of it goes back to the fear of publishing content, of not knowing what it's going to sound like when you first publish. Can you take us back to that first episode and what you've learned since then?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm a restaurant guy. I'm not really a media guy, kind of like you, I imagine, but
I wasn't a barbecue guy when I got into the barbecue business either. Apparently now I'm a barbecue guy.
There was something cathartic about it. I had no idea that I unlocked a passion. When I did that first episode, I was nervous as hell. And I put it out there, then I'm kind of watching my listens And I put a post on Facebook and people were confused. Like, what is this? Like, we don't understand why you like, because I knew a lot of people, but a lot of people didn't know me. And I started just talking kind of, what are you doing out there? And then once I had some really credible chefs come on and I think people saw it and went, oh, and it built my confidence too. I didn't know how to do video editing. The first 30 episodes, I just did audio, and I literally had a microphone and my cell phone on speaker next to that microphone. And you can tell, I mean, now I have a studio in, a great part of Nashville that I do live interviews, the high quality microphones and a mixing board and all this stuff. And it's like, I have no idea how I got here, but I know it was a really fun and educational ride for me.
No, I love it. And one thing that I think you might have uncovered in there too, and that Sean talks about a lot, is Sean's one of the only restaurants I know that dominates the landscape. I don't know if you follow him or not, but if you don't, you should, with regards to telling a story. And that was one thing that hit me when the pandemic hit. Was I've been telling small businesses since 2008 to get online, to get active on social, to be doing email and text and video content. And 2020, I had restaurants that I saw that were doing terrible because they were a Johnny come lately, and it was their handout like this. And the ones I saw that weren't doing terrible were the restaurants that had always openly used social media for what it's meant to be, which is telling a story. And so podcasts are. And so you got all these restaurateurs and people in the restaurant business coming on your podcast. Have you found that a lot of them are uncomfortable is why they're not telling stories or using the content, or are they just too busy?
I think they're too busy. I think the staffing issue that we've got going around everywhere, which I have a lot of thoughts on. I just got back from the Restaurant Leadership Conference in Phoenix, and it's a bunch of chains. It's a bunch of people who have directors of operations and VPs of this and VPs of that in this big room. And it was amazing because the guy said, to open the thing, he said, the people in this room, we're the real pros. We're the pros in this business. The pandemic has it's burned off a lot of the dead wood on the forest floor. So now we can grow bigger. And I thought, damn, that's a really cold way to look at a bunch of mom and pops that didn't make it.
Yeah.
And I just felt like the restaurants were underserved in that moment. Like, people are busy as shit. Independent restaurateurs don't have time to take a week off to go to Phoenix, to go to a restaurant leadership conference. They're busting their ass right now. They're short staffed and they don't have time to fill the stuff. So I feel this level of responsibility to try and identify ways to help them do that. And by the podcast, I've always said it's not a food podcast. I'm not here to talk about your food. I'm here to tell your story. Oh, it's a podcast about people. It's not about your restaurant. People go, man, I'm so sorry. We ended up talking about me and my history. I didn't get to talk about my restaurant. I'm like, well, give us your, Facebook and all that stuff. I think the next thing every restaurant needs to do is their own podcast. Oh,
that's what this morning, 10 o'clock this morning at our headquarters here, we had a 2-hour seminar on creating podcasts because it's a weakness. It's something people don't do. It's not hard. I started my podcast on my iPhone on a tripod with a little AirPod. And then I went to a Rode mic because it was directional on my phone. And then I eventually went to a regular camera. Now I've got guys like this that film, and we have a podcast studio in there. We have 2 vans that travel the road. So, we've got all of that gear now, but it's not hard. And that's the big thing, is that consumers relate to businesses. They spend more money with businesses they relate to. And like, I caught myself when I started talking about this back in the fall of 2020, because me and my wife and kids eat out literally 7 days a week anyways. Tonight I'm grilling out with the team and a bunch of friends at my house.
He's cooking me barbecue, he says.
Cooking him barbecue and ribs. You'll like the sauce too. Yeah. And this is the first time I've actually probably cooked in my house besides Pop-Tarts and DiGiorno in a year. But I remember sitting in my car driving to our office, and I had just passed Taco Bell on the way to the office. And I looked at it and I saw this line and I thought, I'm not eating at Taco Bell. I don't eat there much, but Taco Bell, McDonald's, Subway, all these brands that I associate where I'm a number. Mm-hmm. That there's not a, Joe Heil from Barleycorn inside the 4 walls, where there's not a, Connie and Tom from Basilio's. All the restaurants that I didn't go to that first 6 months of the pandemic were the places that I didn't give a shit about. They were the serviceable ones. The places I went were the restaurants where I knew that Noel and Matt Grimes owned Colonial Cottage. And then when I went and picked up my curbside and ate in the car, I knew it was impacting them and their staff. And that's the value of podcasting, is that only reason I know those people is because I know them from the industry. A lot of consumers need to know them. And that's what we found when we analyzed the data during 6 months, because we're unique in having a lot of data on restaurants with marketing, because that's what we do nationwide, majority independents, is that we could look at it. We thought there was going to be some cool algorithm, like how many likes you had, how many emails, how many text messages, all this shit that happened marketing wise. The biggest wild card was the ones that dominated and did really well during those first 6 months were the ones that consistently told their story through, I mean, honestly, like what Fatty's Smokehouse was doing in Moore, Oklahoma, majority of their stuff was we considered a podcast.
Yep.
They just looked at it as the Facebook Live.
I think so many restaurants that are neighborhood restaurants who want to be a pillar for their community, and so many restaurants are that way, especially the locally owned and operated mom and pop places where the owner's seen walking around the restaurant, greeting the neighbors in the restaurant. We have a restaurant. So I'm also the director of operations for 2 restaurants here in Nashville.
Oh, sweet. Which ones?
We have a restaurant called Mare Bulls, and it is in Brentwood. It's in a 7,500 square foot mansion that was a farmhouse for a horse farm in Brentwood, Tennessee. And so that house, it's a gorgeous home. It's a fine dining restaurant, but really it's the locally owned and operated restaurant for the community of Brentwood. So we're going to start the Mare Bull podcast. And in this podcast, we're going to take regulars that dine in the restaurant who own businesses that are locally owned and operated there in Brentwood. And we're just going to interview them. So you're the veterinarian for the Brentwood Veterinary Clinic. Let's talk about why you did that. What is your story? And as we continue to promote the people in our community, we can tell our story at the beginning. Hey, look, we've got these specials this week.
Yep.
Chef's doing this. We've got this event happening then. But we're here to talk about the Brentwood Veterinary Clinic. And we have 9 private dining rooms in that building. And I just imagine, gosh, if I'm able to interview 20 local businesses, if I do one a month, right? It's not a massive overtaking. You have one a month and you interview 20 different local businesses. When those local businesses are making a decision as to where they want to A, send their friends to go eat, but B, where are we going to do our Christmas party? Where are we going to take Janet for her retirement? Let's go to the place that actively promotes us.
Yep.
You know, I mean, you open up that opportunity and then you become the community. This is the place we go because we live here and they promote us. It's not just give, come eat. It's let us give back to you and provide for the community.
Do it weekly. Do it weekly, not monthly.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying,
yeah.
If your mindset is, I don't have time to do anything. If you start with monthly, you get the bug and you go, ooh, yep. I talked to 9 people. Let's do it weekly. But I mean, I think you got to start somewhere. You just got to get up and do it. Yeah,
we actually, in our podcast studio here, we have a casino that uses it. We have a realtor, and we have a bank coming on in a couple weeks. And we work with restaurants, but because we're local, these local businesses I have relationships with said, man, how did you guys grow America's Best Restaurant so big? And Matt Plapp's brands, it's podcasts, video storytelling, behind the scenes stuff. And so what we decided to do is open up the studio to let people do it. And the banker, what he's going to be doing is he's going to find 52 businesses, because nobody wants to hear about banking. That like the consumers aren't like thriving and go, I want to hear a podcast about banking and interest rates on mortgages, but they do want to hear about their business and their community. And then also that's a great way for that business in the community. They're going to share it, because all those restaurants all the businesses you bring into the restaurant to do the podcast are going to turn around and share the episode on all their platforms. One advice I would give you on that, and you maybe already thought of it, what we do, like with my stuff, we chop it up into 41 pieces of content. So we have a team that we submit a form with the link to the podcast and all the different ins and outs that we like, the 6 fire clips, and it generates 6 vertical videos, 6 horizontal videos, and 6 thumbnails. So 18 pieces of content, and then also audio, and it allows us to put that 41 places in 7 days.
That's incredible. That's where I'm jealous of the team. It's me, myself, and I've got a co-host who comes in. She's got 2 kids, but she can't make it all the time. So we do episodes together when we can. But yeah, it's a large, and people, when people listen, they go, what do you do? So I'm the director of operations for 2 restaurants. We do about 10 million a year in sales, and they're busy restaurants. And then I have this podcast, and then I also own a consulting company where I negotiate vendor contracts for other restaurants when they need help. And I'm buying from 5 people. Well, how do we consolidate that into one? And let's help you build relationships with these companies doing all of that. Plus I got 7 and 8-year-old boys and been married 16 years. And I'm like, I don't have extra time. I need that extra person to come in and do all of that.
Well, maybe what we'll do is we'll get down to Nashville in the near future, because I'm not too far from you. We were just filming down there with one of our vans a couple weeks ago, and we could put together something, because we're looking for restaurants to listen and heed the advice I've been talking about forever, which is telling your story in podcast. I'm sure we can figure out something to where you can literally just click record and stop record. And then that content comes to my team, who makes it look pretty and chops it up and gives you a package to tell the world about.
Oh, I do a lot of recording on StreamYard. So
yep.
Love the StreamYard. StreamYard is fantastic.
Yeah, we do try and do as much as possible in person, but the stuff like this, because all over the country we do there. But it's one of the reasons we built the studio here. And it's not a huge investment for a restaurant if you got space that you can do it. Hell, it might even make a cool little option that people could tie in with that big room you've got, one of those banquet rooms with, hey, by the way, there's a podcast room that you guys can do your wedding pictures in, your event. Yep. You can have fun.
See, so we're on the same page.
Yep.
In our restaurant. I've had the estimate done, got the equipment ready to go. We're going to do that. We're going to do the podcast inside of the restaurant, and then we're going to offer the memories package with all rehearsal dinners and all these events where people can come in. We'll videotape it, and people walk in and go, Janie and Jen, just want to say this is your Aunt Sarah. Congratulations. And we'll put all those together into a little disc and give it to you before you leave. So that for the rest of your life, you have everybody who was at your rehearsal dinner wishing you well, grandma and grandpa who aren't there anymore, on your 50th wedding anniversary, to have your entire family come in and film that, to tell you, to give. There's so many opportunities that you have to tell your story and continue marketing and be part of people's lives.
And that's
you
cool.
You said 2 restaurants that you're director of operations of,
and
you said one of them's going to launch a podcast.
Well, we're going to do both of them. We have Maribel and Green Hills Grill. The Green Hills Grill is the other one, but yeah, they will both have. I was just getting into.
I was just making sure one wasn't getting neglected.
No. We will have 2. I don't want to host it.
I push you to do more podcasting in case you can't tell.
Yeah. I want you to podcast every hour. I tell you what, though, I love that idea of the wedding, because as you were saying that, I'm picturing the people that always do the little Polaroid cameras and the funny pictures on the table. I'm also picturing some pretty funny situations where people don't know the mic's hot. Like, yeah, did you know that this happened? Hey, FYI, the mic is hot when you walk in here.
It's on.
That could be a pretty cool thing. They could walk in, and because we had an open house, a Christmas party here at my office, and my son, who's 18 now, and 2 of his friends were in this podcast studio, nothing recording, headphones on, microphones, just having a conversation back and forth for 30 minutes. And they thought it was great. I'm like, why don't you start a podcast about what? I'm like, whatever the dumbass shit you talking about 30 minutes. I don't know.
I have in this studio, I have a monitor on the wall up there, and I've got all my sponsors and everything in this built-in behind me. Pretty fun. But I have people come in and we do meetings in here, because I can project out spreadsheets on the wall, and it's nice, it's quiet, it's outside of the restaurant. You don't get interrupted. But people will come in all the time, and we'll just have conversations on mic, because you can focus. When my voice is going directly into your ears and you're looking at me, and every time you speak, you can hear it. I admit the conversations are fantastic. And I end up doing all my interviews are hour-plus long interviews, because I like to get past some of the PR speak and get down to it and really get to nitty-gritty. But we could do these things for every episode. I go, I could talk to you for hours, but at some point we have to stop. Let's do it again soon. Because I just don't want to stop talking. It's so much fun.
What podcasters do you admire when you're looking at the craft, the interview craft?
I'm a huge Howard Stern fan. I've listened to Howard Stern for 15 years, and where he has his crude side and whatever he is, whatever your opinion about him is, his interview style, he does an hour to an hour and a half live, uncensored, no commercials. Right. So you get people in there and he'll dig deep. And like I said, he gets past some of the stuff that, okay, here to talk about your movie. That's great. But I noticed in that scene, you did this. Where does that come from? And he digs deep into he takes little things and has people go through this long story. And it's really interesting to me, the stuff he gets people to say. And I just thought, man, I want to do that. I want to figure out a way for if you're on the show, I want to talk to you for an hour, and I want people who are your friends to listen to this and go, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I didn't know that about you. And I also think it's freaking fantastic to interview your friends, because these are people you hang out with that you're not necessarily asking these caustic, penetrating questions to. And you're like, I didn't know that about you. And we've been hanging out for years.
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of another really fun aspect. Howard Stern, right now, when I'm mowing my yard and I'm hiking, I try and go hiking every single day, because that's my time I listen to a podcast for about 20 to 30 minutes, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. But when my brain gets an idea or a nugget of some idea and it just starts to wander and I realize I'm not listening to the podcast anymore, I turn it off and I just go and I let that go. And then I get back to my car and I take notes, and it's a whole thing. But I love Eric Cacciatore. He just had on the show the other day. Restaurant Unstoppable has been amazing. It's an amazing show. And Armchair Expert with Dak Shepard. I love that one. Smartless, just for really interesting conversations. I love Brene Brown. Her Dare to Lead podcast is really good. And I'm a Generation Xer, and I just love learning empathy and learning vulnerability and identifying with other people. And I'm leading a bunch of people that aren't like me. And how do I lead them better? How do I be a better leader? And so all of those things, I'm constantly just insatiably curious about. How can I learn more and get better every day?
You know, my favorite, Jerry Seinfeld, Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee.
I love
Yeah.
it. Great
His-
show. It's about the
his-
craft.
His craft
Yep.
is unmatched. I mean, and it's funny because when I first saw he did it, I
Yeah.
didn't know a whole lot about it. And I figured, okay,
He made me a huge fan by
here's-
doing
yeah.
that show.
here's going to be Jerry, some rich guy, talking about his cars because he's got a shitload of them.
Yep.
And I'm
Horses.
a car guy.
Yeah.
And then next thing I know, I watch it, and it's like literally the depth he goes,
Yep.
the fun he has with it. One of the funniest ones I remember was his wife called him, and they were stuck in traffic, and the car he was in was like a $600,000 Bentley, and they're bitching about something random, and his wife calls, says, "Oh, let's put her on," and she gets on, "What are you guys doing?" It's two rich guys bitching about first world problems. The Bentley, we're stuck in traffic. This we can't figure out. It was just funny because it was so
It's
real.
real and raw.
But his interview style and what he gets out of people is pretty unbelievable.
Tim Ferriss did an interview with Jerry Seinfeld. It was a phenomenal 2-hour interview about the craft, going really deep into comedians and cars, but also the craft of creating the joke, which is great for anybody that cares about podcasting or storytelling.
Love that.
Well, awesome. So appreciate you having you on. I'm guessing the easiest way people to find you, NashvilleRestaurantRadio.com.
That's me. Yeah, you'll see a picture of me. You can all the stuff. If you want to get a hold of me, or if you want to recommend somebody for the show, you can listen to any episode there. You can visit all the sponsors. You can do the whole thing.
Well, awesome. We appreciate you being on, and we'll let you go on your day. And we look forward to getting down to Nashville soon, talking business and figuring out the podcast with you.
Anytime, brother. Love to have you.
Hey, thanks,
Great
Brandon.
to meet you, Brandon.
Thanks, guys.